Welcome to Darkwater Rising. Today we're going to be doing Chapter 4. Please have your book open to page 29. Ezra's rooster woke me the next morning, pulling me from something soft and murmuring, dragging me back to my crowded island of mosquito netting. I pushed Matt off my arm, threw back the netting, and stumbled for the door. Once in the hall, I ran into Mama, holding a step stool and pulling Kate behind her. She gave me a sleepy look and held a finger to her lips. "Where are you going?" she whispered. "Out back," I said, fully aware of what was coming next. "Good." She pushed the step stool at me. "Then you can take your sister for me. I've got to get dressed and help with breakfast." "Mom, I can't. I have to go." "Well, Seth, you're going anyway." I stared at her for a moment, all rumpled in her tired blue robe. I was tempted to walk down the stairs and leave her standing there, and one day I might, but not today. Outside, a fiery glow barely flickered on the horizon, and already the sticky damp heat clung to my skin and sat heavy in my chest. We walked to the backyard, past a small magnolia tree near the side stairs, and swung the outhouse door open. Spiders and cockroaches scrambled for safety, while Kate hid her face in my nightshirt. "Are they gone yet?" she whispered. I clenched my teeth, hearing Mama's voice plain as day in my head saying, "She thinks you're the only one who can get the bugs to go home to their babies." "Yeah, they're gone." I dropped the stool and kicked it close to the seat. "You can go in now." "Thank you, Seth," she said, stepping onto the stool. I closed the door and waited. "I'm through," she called after a few moments. I let her out, shooed her toward the house, and pushed the stool aside. "Dang it all," I whispered to the walls. "How long can a man be expected to take his baby sister to the toilet?" I stepped back out, and the door slammed shut behind me. I cringed at the sound, but it quickly disappeared on the salt, damp breeze to disturb the neighbors up the street. Before I headed back, a movement around the small frame house near the alley caught my eye. Ezra was in his garden cutting okra from tall stalks. A dented pan lay at his feet, already half full of the prickly harvest. I'd heard Uncle Nate say that he let the colored man live rent-free in the two-room house in exchange for help with horses and chores. He appeared quite handy with a hammer and saw, too. The clapboard siding was bare of paint, but the windows were neatly shuttered, and the gables embellished with spindled woodwork, all of which looked in good repair. So were the fences around the garden and chicken pen. While I stood there, wondering if he had a wife inside waiting to cook his breakfast, his hands dropped to his sides as if he knew he was being watched. He picked up the pan at his feet, slowly turned, and looked my way. I waved, feeling a bit embarrassed about my staring, but even more so about the stool dangling from my hand. Ezra hesitated, but only for a moment. Then he gave me a wide grin and waved back. We finished off a breakfast of ham, eggs, and grits, then packed up a few of the things we'd needed for the night and loaded them into the back of the buggy. Ezra had already left in the dray, headed for the rental. Uncle Nate turned Archer west, down Avenue R, taking us past Woolham's Lake. He said there were only about 30 houses in the Denver Reserve, so Mama was pleased to find we had so many neighbors close by. "The Masons live next door to your rental," Uncle Nate said, "and Captain Munn, the Vedders, and the Peak family live behind you toward the beach. Richard Peak is our city engineer." He'd already told us about Fort Crockett, with its brand-new artillery emplacements, which lay just south of us, close to the shoreline, and about St. Mary's Orphanage, too, which housed 10 sisters and almost 100 chicken. The two large dormitories sat about 10 blocks farther down the island, in the dunes right next to the beach. I couldn't imagine what it was like to lose both your parents, but I figured that if it had to be so, then living in a place where you could go swimming and fishing every day was where I'd want to be. We pulled up to a small, two-story house facing north, its back turned to the Gulf. Like most of the homes in Galveston, it was built atop a raised basement. It had electric lights and a porch, or gallery, as they called it here, that ran across the main floor and wrapped around the east side to catch the Gulf breezes. Mama looked excited. The house was nicer than anything we'd had in Lampasas. She and Kate climbed the steps to look it over, and Matt and Lucas ran after them. I grabbed one of the few crates left in the dray to carry up with me, but Uncle Nate put his hand on my shoulder. "Ezra will do that, son." I stood there, gripping Mama's china, while Papa and Uncle Nate continued their talk. I'd always been expected to help before, and didn't see why this time should be any different. Besides, Ezra was old, and he'd already made countless trips up those stairs. "No need of worrying," Ezra said, easing the crate from my hands. "I'll take right good care of it, Mr. Seth." The old man snuggled the china close to his chest and headed up the stairs, mindful of each step to the main floor. 2 more trips and the dray sat empty. Uncle Nate said his goodbyes and left Ezra to take Papa into town for groceries. While they were gone, a woman named Virginia Mason came to welcome us with fresh baked bread and a bundle of jasmine cut from the trellis in her yard. The sweet-smelling blossoms reminded me of the honeysuckle that had grown outside my bedroom window in Lampasas. While I put the vines in water for Mama, I heard Mrs. Mason say that she and her husband live next door with their 3 children and a servant. "And if we can help and be of any service in helping you get settled," she said, "please do not hesitate to call upon us." The fact that so many here had colored servants seemed a curious thing to me. In Lampasas, most had been Mexicans or immigrants who spoke little English. I never had any first-hand experience with them, though. Mama and Papa had always considered hired help to be an extravagance when they had 3 strapping boys to help with the heavy work. I grew up scrubbing floors, tending horses, washing clothes, whatever was needed, and it appeared that nothing would change much with this move. All day Saturday, Mama had us doing things that would have made any man my age balk, dangling the chance to see the Labor Day parade in front of us like it was Christmas morning. While we helped clean the outhouse and unpack dishes, put away our clothes, and make our beds, Matt and Lucas talked of nothing but Monday's festivities. But it was Tuesday that pulled hard at my thoughts, the day I'd finally get to do the kind of work a man could be proud of. Over the next few days, more neighbors came with friendly welcomes. There were Mrs. Peak and Mrs. Vedder, who lived behind us on Avenue S, Mrs. Munn from Avenue S and a half, and from still nearer the beach, Captain Lucian Miner, who seemed a tad lonely, with his whole family in Virginia for the summer. The Columns, a middle-aged couple with a house full of pets, came too, talking a steady stream about their cats and parrots, which seemed an unlikely combination to me. I'd already seen the 3 young Masons from next door and most of the 6 Peak children playing ball in the streets. I'd seen 2 of the Vedder kids, too, crawling all over their daddy's retired hearse and a gray donkey they called Whiskers. But most of the time, it was impossible to pick out who belonged where. There seemed to be plenty of room here for kids, chickens, livestock, and truck gardens, most of which everyone had in abundance. And according to Mrs. Florence Vedder, there was even a bathhouse just 6 blocks away on the beach. "We have lots of bathing parties and watermelon feasts for the children there," she told Mama. "We have poker games for the parents, too, or Hugo and whist. And sometimes we do a little moonlight dancing and have refreshments on the bathhouse roof garden." She pointed to the houses around us. "All these families are friends, and we've had many good times together. I'm sure you'll like it here, Eliza." Mama's smile was even wider that evening when she told Papa about Mrs. Vedder's visit. She sat at the table teaching Kate how to make paper flowers, and all the while she chattered on and on about what she'd learned. She seemed to be settling in fast here and not at all upset that she had to start over in a new place. For me, it was somewhat different. I didn't miss my friends all that much. They'd quit school long ago to work. But I was finding it odd eating my meals at a rented table and seeing strange children and strange animals playing up and down the block. Even more peculiar was lying in a bed that wasn't my own, listening to the creaks and sighs of an unfamiliar house at night. All three of us boys slept in one room with a chiffonier for our clothes and three narrow bunks. I didn't mind the small beds as long as I didn't have to share one with Matt or Lucas, but the bed springs squeaked differently when I rolled over. And unlike my old bedroom, the curtains were plagued by salt damp breezes and rarely fell silent. During the first night, I lingered at the open windows while the boys slept, listening to the faint crash of surf against the not-so-distant beach, filling my head with the enormity and sheer power of what lay just out of sight. It made me feel like an ant in a house of sand, with the overfull bowl of sea lapping at my door. True to her word, Mama packed a lunch Monday morning, and we met Uncle Nate and his family in town to picnic in the park and watch the afternoon parade. Matt, who was never without his baseball and bat, started a game and quickly pulled in enough players for two teams. When it came time to quit, we almost had to drag him from the park. The parade turned out to be a splendid sight, with band music and big floats of every kind. We saw decorated buggies and bicycles, and even dogs and pigs decked out with ribbons as though they were going to the fair. When it was over, Patel and Booth, contracting tinners, received first prize for their float, which was in the shape of a star with a huge eagle perched on top, all in tin work. I heard a reporter from the Daily News say, "There seemed to be more good humor, snap, and ginger in this parade than any turnout for the past several years." We said goodbye to Uncle Nate, Aunt Julia, and the kids and headed home. Papa bought saltwater taffy for us to eat on the long walk and teased Mama about having been so leery of making this move. She laughed, her eyes still shiny from the excitement of the parade. "The good Lord has a reason for everything, Thomas, and I suppose there's a reason for this move as well." I'd heard Mama say that sort of thing many times before, but I wasn't sure I believed it. Papa didn't reply, but I could tell he thought he already knew why he was here. He wanted to build a new business for himself and send his sons to college. I watched him peel the paper from another piece of taffy and pop it into Mama's mouth, I think just to hear her laugh again. I liked seeing them happy, but I liked even better that I'd have the chance to prove myself to Papa. If God truly had a reason for everything that happened to us, then making Papa see things my way had to be the reason that I got that carpenter job. That night, I wound the clock and set the alarm for 6. The walk to my new job site in the morning would be a long one, and I had no intention of being late for my first day of work. But sleep didn't come easy. I lay wide awake for hours, staring at the ceiling, while the parade cheers and band music played in my head. After a while, I caught the sweet scent of jasmine drifting through the windows from the mason's trellis next door. It made this strange place feel a bit more like home, and finally I closed my eyes. This concludes Chapter 4. Please join me next time on page 39 for Chapter 5. Have a good day.